We're live.
He turns it live while I'm like,
Leave it all at the door.
I need you right here. I need you to be right here in the moment, chat.
Who's
with
going to
me.
be first? Paint Liquor.
Paint Liquor first. Hello. How you doing?
Welcome in, everybody.
How are you doing, folks? Why, hello. Big Bob.
Big Bobzilla. Paint Liquor.
Big Bob. The Paint Liquor. Okran, what's going on? Hey, Okran. I did not understand when we brought on our latest hire that he belonged to you.
Really? William? Is it William?
I feel like they're infiltrating.
Oh, my.
They're infiltrating Monument HQ via chat.
It's not good.
Rattlecan, what's going on? Big Bob, is it Adepticon yet? It better not be. Do not do that. Do not do that. Okran says, yep, he's mine. And you say that out loud? You admit that? Cannibalistic, what's going on? Hello. You should be a recruiter. Chat's invading Monument HQ.
Everybody move here.
It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster.
Everybody move here.
Yeah, eventually we could, like, you know, at the time that it takes, we could recruit straight from chat and just be like, okay, chat, I need you today to start thinking about how you're going to move to Arizona and be part of the Monument crew. And by the time all of them did it, we might have grown to the size where we could handle them all.
Well, then who's going to be in chat?
Oh.
Damn. Who's going to be in chat with us?
Damn, yeah, we're not going to pay you to watch the stream. Sorry. Paylicker says, good, my spy in the company is still safe. They're all dead. Our theory around here is if we catch a spy, we kill everybody.
What?
Because if you have one, where there's one,
there are many.
There's many.
Oh, that's true.
So you just get rid of all of them. We're the Inquisition. We don't ask questions. We virus bomb the whole planet. Wipe it clean, start from scratch. Attacks Frost from Germany to the USA. There you go, see? It'll take you a while. 20 plus years? You wait, what? Okran, you've been putting up with William for 20 plus years?
Wow, nice.
I feel like there needs to be a medal for that. Asked about what's going on. Little Billy, Baby J Sr. Baby J Sr.? What the? Fired. Chat, we're hiring for that chat slot.
There was a lot of first-time chatters yesterday.
Dusty Hobbies, I love it. Hello from Wales, my nerds. I like my nerds. I like my nerds.
Panic Bomb for
Sup, my nerds.
18 months, Panic Bomb. Thank you so much.
Wolf, what's going on? Hello, everybody. I hope your week is going okay. It is whatever today is.
Today
Wednesday.
is Wednesday.
It's hump day.
It's Wednesday.
It's whatever today is. It has been such a hectic week for Jason that I'm surprised I remember my name. But I am talking about myself in the third person, so that accounts for something.
That's right.
All right, back to Tonks. Baby J painted an amazing face for you guys yesterday.
It's underneath. He's basically, essentially... It's
his whole station is like under here.
It's a two-parter. We're doing... He did a really fun workup on another one, so we're going to do an OSL effect on the other side.
Yeah.
On Thursday. So we did a workup yesterday. If you all were tuning in,
fantastic job he did.
Wolfrey, thank you so much for that sub. Yes,
painting that great. Flesh. It turned out amaze balls.
Yep.
Baby J proving why he is once again one of the better painters. Been omega busy this week, so have I. Holy cow.
Welcome in. We've got Colonel, we got Source, Wad, Flapjack, Little Billy, Panic Bomb. Wolfern, again, thank you so much for that one sub.
Little Billy says, I'm here for one thing and one thing only. JFK voice narrating this whole stream.
Yesterday
You know, with the power of AI.
Yesterday I was doing... my JFK was coming out.
You're Boston? You have a Boston accent?
What can I do for you? It was too much.
Today, we are going to put more lines on the tank.
We're gonna put a man on the moon. We're gonna
then
do
a
it
man
right.
on the moon.
We're gonna do it first.
Welcome, chat, to
That's
the
it.
rehabilitation of America.
Matt Bradley,
One day at a time.
Tell me there's a VOD for that face. Yes. Yesterday, Matt, if you check out yesterday's VOD, we did the entire workup from start to finish. And then on Thursday, Baby J will be back with us and we'll be doing the OSL. And today...
That's tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I guess that's true.
That's tomorrow.
And today we have Jason back.
For the people, by the people.
Oh no. It continues. For the people.
By the people. My Massachusetts accent it's very dodgy at best. Voldemort, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using zenithal priming in combination with OSL in multi-layer miniature painting, and how does he affect the perception of depth and realism in the final result? Are you using like Chat GPT for these questions now?
Voldemort, that was like a college level question.
For you to ask a question like that, I feel like you already know the answer and you're just testing me. Like that's what your professor asks on the quiz, right? So scroll back up. I gotta brain power this one. He's coming at me hard and heavy at the beginning of the stream here. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of using zenithal priming and Okay, so you're rolling multiple questions up into one and we don't allow that. You're gonna have to pick one of those. Oh, no. I'm kidding. What advantages and disadvantages of zenithal priming in combination with OSL in multi-layer miniature painting? And how does this affect the perception of depth and realism? That's such a college question.
That's great.
So there's a lot going on to your question. Zenithal highlighting, right, which is technically an incorrect use of the terminology. Zenithal would mean the zenith is the furthest distance in an arc from the body that you're arcing around. So that would be like noon, right? So you don't really want to highlight from straight above the model, number one, but we call it pre-highlighting and you get the idea. I just throw that in there for context. So when you're doing that, what it does is it allows you to see the lighting direction on the model, because when done correctly, when you use that pre-highlighting method, that zenithal, let's say we had the light coming from this side of the tank, everything that we sprayed, the rattle can or the airbrush would come from this direction. You would only get paint available to hit one side. When you turned it around, it would be completely dark, right? So it shows you how light would hit a thing, because light acts like the paint to some extent. Light travels in rays. It can only hit objects that cross the ray's path, right? And then the rays reflect and come back, and then it can light the other side. So when you look at the geometry of light, the airbrush and the rattle can are able to kind of fake that and put that lighting on the model. Now, when you mention OSL, I don't know that zenithal, it can set you up for an OSL. So OSL, meaning object source light, is the display of light on a model from some source, either on the model or external to the model, that gives you the idea of a direct light source. We paint most models to where they're just, whatever, outside. Like this is just standard lighting. There's no specific light going on this guy, right? And then there's a little bit of a glow in on the green button there on the missile launcher. And that green glow has an OSL to it, where that function of light is specific to that little triangle of glow on the gun. So does a zenithal prime help you with OSL? If you were doing something like the whole model in that light, maybe. Typically the OSL part is put on top of the coloring that you've already done. So like if we were doing OSL out of this lamp on the tank, we'll finish the tank. Then we will go back with basically what you would call a highlight of transparent white or thinned down titanium white to do the illusion of light cast along the length of the barrel of the gun, maybe, right? Because this light would highlight only the areas that the cone of light, so it would come out at an angle out of that bulb, and everything from the point of contact of the angle of that light onward would be lit up. So the top of the barrel really is the only thing on this tank that would get lit. Maybe a little bit on the gun mantlet, right?
It's like a big floodlight, essentially.
Yeah, but it isn't going to light stuff up in the immediate vicinity of the light, because it has this big canister around it. Right, so it's only going the canister and the lens focus the light forward, so only things in front of the light. and only things in the cone of how that light comes out. The light doesn't come out in a big, 360-degree plane forward. So it's only going to catch the top of the mantlet, top of the barrel on this particular model. So we would highlight those with white, a zenithal highlight, so to speak, and then you would go back over with the color of the lamp. So if we made this lamp like yellow light, then we would go back over with a yellow tinge to it, which we may do. So advantages and disadvantages, I don't think that's really pertaining to the fact that Zenithal and OSL are not components of a thing. They're not like, what do we say? They're not mutually exclusive, right? So it's an odd question because zenithal priming is a way to get the initial midtones and highlights defined on a model that allow you to paint the model properly for the light that you want it within. Technically, that light is OSL. The sun is an object that is the source of your lighting. So you could say that when you paint any model, it's OSL because it's in the sun. That's not how we use that term. The OSL is really like a directed effect, like something that makes a light source, out of something specific. So Baby J, when he painted the flame, right, onto Nav, you've got that object light source, which is the flame in his hand, and you've got the green that shines back on the model, but he painted the model and then went back and glazed the green over the face color, so there was no zenithal here done. So to do this properly, you're going to need the color of your source light to fall across the colors of your model, because that's how the interaction of the color would actually work. So, right, that's why I say your question is a little odd in that regard, because those don't really mesh. They can be used, but not in a sense that I would say they're advantages or disadvantages.
Like the Duck, thank you so much for that Prime sub. We appreciate that.
Zazin says OSL means the light is being produced by another object, not the sun. Not true. It just means that there's an object presenting your light source and you're modeling that light source specifically. So technically, sunlight, if you model it as such, is OSL. You would do it the same exact way, right? We just don't think of it in that sense because we're just painting, and in order for there to be color on anything, there has to be light. So yes, the object source light is some other light source other than your main light source, which would be sun or room light or whatever we're painting. But if you were to do it in a, there's a, think in terms of I'm in a dark room, cracking the door open and the light's flooding through and hitting just a slot of my model, then it is object source light, right? You fancy more pro acryl in your life, Dusty? We like that.
We do like that.
We like that. Got a transparent set today? Nice.
So, Jason, what are we doing today?
Today, I don't remember. What am I supposed to do today?
Doing some more freehand,
I got to do the numbers.
The numbers.
I got to do the yellow numbers today, yes.
What's the technical term? Is it decal? It's not decal, but what is it? Like maybe it is decal.
Well, I'm just hand lettering.
Hand lettering.
The decal is a product that is all of that artwork that is on a water transfer that you would put on. That's a decal or decal if you're in Canada.
Is there a military term for like the numbers and stuff?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what those
numbers.
Numbers. I thought they had like some specific name.
No. It's called numbers.
Like the Duck, how do I trade in my entire set of scale 75 for Pro Acryl?
You call scale 75 and you tell them that you've decided to switch to Pro Acryl and you need a refund. We joke all the time that we are the brand that is the single largest provider of gifted paints to new hobbyists. So we strongly suggest you use those old paints that you are no longer going to use and gift them to a friend who needs to get into the hobby or is thinking about getting into the hobby, and go from there. That is the way to do it.
The Burger Club, I'm waiting for my Flame On set to arrive so I can try my hand at non-metallic gold for the first time.
Awesome.
Nice. We've got a non-metallic gold video coming to you guys early next week.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
I need a...
You need something?
Yeah, I need a reference picture of a stenciled 4 and 2. I'm going to paint a stenciled 4 and a stenciled 2, and I don't know what those look like.
Mm-hmm.
Just right out of my head, I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know. Dusty, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Let Flame on do the other set. He wants to do copper non-metallics.
Oh.
Let him do the other set he wants to do. He does want to do another one. Perfecto. That works.
Works.
All right, perfect. You can shrink that down. I can see it pretty good. Yeah. There we go. Just zoom, if you can, zoom in on just the 4 for me. Can you just scroll to zoom? I think you just scroll to zoom, can't you? Oh no, that just goes up and down.
Hold.
Zoom. In. Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I can tell what's going on.
Cool.
I can tell what's going on, man. I don't need to see it. I'm going to start with just some yellow ochre as the backdrop for the yellow first. And we're just going to go for it. And a 4 looks something like this. Right. I will, when I'm freehanding letters and numerals, I will get the basic shape done and not worry about line width first. When doing something like this with a stencil, the part about a stencil is that the number will be in multiple segments. In this case, the 4 will be in 2 segments. It'll have the nose, if we will, and then the upright. And so what I'm going to do is separate those like you would, leave a gap there, and then do my upright with a line. Right, and then my upright has a foot. I'm just going to do a line across for the foot. Right, and then it has the little tail that comes through from the nose. So there's the general shape. Now, then I determine how do I want to thicken that up if I do. Right now, because I'm doing multiple numerals, I'm going to do 4 and 2. I want to complete the 4 before doing the 2. And the reason why is that if I do the 2 right now, I'm going to do the 2 small and up above, so it looks like 4 squared almost, right? And the reason I want to do complete the 4 before I do the 2 is because if I thicken the 4 out, if I decide I want this number to be really thick, I have to thicken away from the gap that I've made in this case for the stencil. So I'd have to thicken it out to the right, which might pull it too close to the 2 if I've already done the 2. Make sense?
Yeah.
So I want to get the idea of the size and shape of my numerals or letters before I move on to the next one. If I sketch them all out, I'm limited now to my letter spacing, and it doesn't allow you to widen your letters symmetrically if you do that. So it's base nature, I think, for us to say, okay, if I wanted to type worm across here, I would do WORM to get my spacing right. But then as I go through and complete my letters, I can wind up discombobulating it because I make one thicker than the other and my letter spacing changes. And you can't redo that without going back with your base color, which is all this airbrushed green, which would be a real hassle. So I typically do one letter at a time.
And you do these letterings before you do any weathering and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, because this paint would all be weathered too.
Yep.
Right? You can imagine this rolls off the line, goes immediately to regiment headquarters, gets its numbers put on, and then the weathering starts.
Lumberjack Tim, I noticed when I was going through my paints for thick consistency, the Ninja and Vinci V sets, 4 or 6 of them got thick. Did you guys do something different with those sets?
Nope. Stop storing your paints in the garage, Tim. When you go on your long hiatuses with your girlfriend that doesn't like your grill, keep your paints inside.
Yasin's got a good one. Hello, I'm new in the miniature painting. What models can you suggest as design, not as a brand for beginners? Not as a brand, but for beginners. Should I start with human skins or tanks like this one?
Oh boy, I'm a big fan of what I call rule of cool. What do you like? Right? Because as you're starting out, I think that the biggest concern is going to be what's going to keep you interested, right? That will create your best environment for painting. So what do you like? Do you like vehicles? Do you like human anatomy and want to be able to paint flesh? Do you find a barbarian model that really speaks to you for your D&D group? Whatever it is, that's where I send people.
Yeah, whatever speaks to you.
Yeah, because if you feel excited about the product in front of you, you're going to focus more on it and do a better job. So for me to tell you, the best place to start is with Space Marines. If you don't like Space Marines, you're not going to have fun painting as much as you would if you just said, you know what, I play a wizard in my D&D group. I found this really bitchin' wizard model. Should I start there? The answer is always yes.
Yep.
Right? Because regardless of your knowledge of painting, you will have more fun painting something you love, and you will learn more, even if it's a very difficult model. You'll learn more by messing up and having fun with that model than you will if I point you towards paint the sphere and then paint a cube and then work to a dragon. Forget all that. Just paint what you think is cool. You like humans? You're one of the few.
Lumberjack says they stay in the house and I paint weekly.
I don't know. There's no reason for them to thicken at all. That's environmental. That's either caps left open over time, not closed fully. Did you take the seals out? None of the paint's thicken. The only one that we've ever had an issue with thickening is the transparent white. I am going to thicken this line, speaking of that.
If Paintless Liquor's asking, if paint was to get thick, do you just add a drop of water to it to like revive it?
Don't put the water in the bottle. Just add water or medium as you use the paint. But yes, you can do that. Don't put water in the bottle because that you may have a problem that is with the seal on the bottle or something. And then if you put water in the bottle, it's just going to exacerbate that. It's going to cause it to evaporate quicker and dilute the paint, which you don't want to necessarily do. So add your water after the fact.
Jason, for your freehand, when you're doing a decal like this, can you give any tips on your finger control, essentially, and like how you had mentioned it a little while ago on your
like how to pull straight lines, because I'm having to pull straight lines right here.
Yeah.
So the big key when doing any type of straight line work is to make sure you have a fun. If you want to zoom out a little bit,
so
I can show my whole hand and arm, because this one typically comes down to how you rest your work and control your workplace.
Yeah.
So I'm at a standing desk, right? So I have my elbow height on my desk and my forearms lay flat on the table. And then I hold the miniature supported in my right hand, and I'm a lefty, so I paint with my left hand. And then it's all about control of the brush. And I tell people that you want to start, holding a brush like you would a pencil. It's the same grip for me, pencil to brush, but it's a lot different in how you use it. With a pencil, we tend to write from our wrist. We just kind of learn that, as you write, you're doing it kind of from all of your knuckles and your wrist. You have a lot of motion depending on the letter. With painting and pulling straight lines, you want to get used to using in my case, I use my middle finger and I push with my middle finger. So my middle finger is applying pressure to the brush this way, and all my thumb is doing is really giving a little bit of resistance to keep it straight in a line. Don't use your wrist at all. Your wrist is a ball joint, and your wrist moves in an arc. So let's get some paint and I'll show you what I mean. Right, if I just get a lot of this yellow paint on here, right, I'm going to over exaggerate, but if I were to just do this, right, touch and then only move with my wrist, you can see that it pulls an arc and not a straight line. Okay. Yeah. And that's just the normal movement of the wrist. So it's just wrist motion, keeping your wrist steady will not pull a straight line. So you have to balance that. And it's easier to just take, if you want to zoom in now.
Yeah.
It's easier to just take your fingers, take the wrist out of the situation. For me, at a standing desk, this is pretty easy because my arm is laying on it, so my wrist doesn't have to hold any of the balance of the brush. All my weight is on my front arm. And now I'll touch here, and then I'll start pulling or pushing with my middle finger and allowing my thumb to do a little bit of back pressure, and now I can control that line and pull a straight line. Okay? So you want to get used to this kind of motion where it's just your fingers doing the work and no wrist, because that's going to allow you to do like a lot of really quick striations. I can do this. You see me do a lot of textures, and that's exactly how you do that. You just kind of whip the brush in straight lines and you get that shading and texturing going. which you can't do if you're doing it with your wrist, or if you get a little sloppy and all of your brushstrokes start being curves, then it gives a totally different texture, and on a flat panel may not look right. So you've always got to remember that. But that's really it, right? Is just kind of pushing with my middle finger. My forefinger could be taken out of the equation. It just helps balance the brush in my hand, right? But it's really just your middle finger, or my middle finger and my thumb in this case, and I'm just doing this, right? To do straight lines. This just helps keep a grip on the brush so it doesn't feel like it's going to pop out of your hand or flip sideways, right? So the forefinger is not really doing anything. It's just those two fingers. Now, there are people who are really good at line work, right? And they will hold it, and they're just good at setting like these two fingers. And on bigger work surfaces, you can just put the brush down and then move your whole hand as one apparatus along, and you're not moving anything. You're pulling from your shoulder, right? Yeah. That's how you do like pinstriping on cars and bikes and stuff. You wouldn't move, because we're talking about doing it in a small area, right? My middle finger and my thumb won't do much of a longer line than like that. Yeah. Right? Because out here it gets all squirrely, right? So I'm only going to really be able to do maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches tops with that. But in the scale we're working in, that's plenty. Right? And especially when you're doing very small detail, you don't want to have your shoulder be pulling it, because your shoulder's ability to do that fine resolution is very minimal. When you move your shoulder a little bit, you get an inch long line, right? So it's the whole physics and geometry of like lever length, right?
Nice. Cool. Can you kind of show us that on this model right here?
Yeah, I'm going to, if you can zoom in, you want to get a tight zoom on it?
500 there.
Yeah. So I'm just going to straighten up, the line here. I've already got a bunch of the lines done, but I'm just going to do this, and you get your brush set there, and then I just use my forefinger and my thumb, and I pull right down the edge of that line. And then I fill in. When I fill in, I'm less concerned with straight lines. I'm just going for fill paint, but it's the edges that are the big key. Right? And I'll turn it, because I always pull the line towards me. You can't do that same method, and you can see how this line is a little thicker up at the top and thinner down at the bottom, so I need to straighten that out. We'll do the same thing. I'll just kind of make sure that I get that line, get the brush located here to where it thickens the bottom out, and then again, just using my middle finger and my thumb, pull that to where it blends into the upper half. It's just a short pull. But I'm always rotating the model to make sure that I'm pulling and pushing the paintbrush the exact same way with each brush stroke, because I just get finer control that way.
Cool. Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah. This will allow you to do anything. That, combined with the fact that when you're doing freehand, now these numerics are very simple geometric shapes.
Yeah.
But when doing more complex shapes, I still break them down into these very simple forms, like this 4, even if I were doing a dragon or whatever I was doing on here.
Welcome in, everybody. If you're just now tuning in, we've got Jason back today, working on some numbers and decals and such. We had Baby J yesterday working on a witch workup. He'll be back tomorrow doing some OSL. And then Jason will be back with us on Friday. Got a big variety week this week. Hope you guys have been enjoying it.
Yeah, he killed it on the crone yesterday. I watched after work, and I was like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it came out great. His OSL is going to be very cool on it as well. We're going to do a green style he's going to do.
Nice.
First time chat. Tysos, yep. Hey, I just bought the Mega Paint pack the other day to try out your paints.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you. Welcome to our family. The crazy little Pro Acryl family.
Source is asking, what do you think about Baby J's glove? He had a glove on yesterday. Everybody's giving him a mobster vibes. He had a hand on. I think it was because he was priming something. He had a glove. He normally doesn't wear a glove. He had a glove in his right hand. Just the one glove. And people were giving him some hard time.
He does that quite often, though.
He does when he's got like when he's priming too. So I
Yeah.
think he helped prime something of the Crone maybe. I forget.
Okay, so now starting in on the 2.
Nice. What's up, Mo? Welcome in. Zazin is asking, how do you like standing for your painting?
That's the best thing I ever did. 100% the best decision I ever made as a painter was to do a standing desk. It 100% changes your overall posture and ability to paint for long periods of time without fatigue.
Yeah. It definitely is a huge benefit. My workstation at home. I'll I have a taller workbench in my garage where I paint, and I definitely will get up and stand when I'm doing painting. I also stand at my computer desk all day.
Yeah, I don't like the standing desk for computer work. It
Mhm.
bugs the crap out of me.
That's I like walking.
I don't know
too.
why, but for painting, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's great because I
very
sit at my
interesting.
desk all day, and then for 2 hours, I get to come in here and stand and paint.
That's
But
him.
for those of you that still paint sitting down, it causes you to roll your shoulders forward while you paint because you now have got to hunch yourself in, so you get that pain in your shoulders and the back of your neck. Whereas when you're standing, you can have your shoulders loose. I have my standing desk at the height of the bend of my elbow, so it's like 48 inches, 49 inches, and then my forearms just lie flat on the table, and that supports my weight as I lean into the table. And now all my model's completely supported. And I don't have to hunch my shoulders. I say that, and then when I get in and do detail work like this, you might see my shoulders kind of come in as I'm really getting in close. But for the most time, you'll see me back like this.
Yeah, I've gotten used to the standing and walking desk.
Yeah, Christopher has a treadmill that goes along with his standing desk that you catch him. I hear him in there.
It really helps me focus. It really does. Like when I'm editing and I need to like focus, my mind can't drift because I'm thinking about two things: not falling and the edit. So it definitely for me helps me focus. Yazin's asking, is there a certain story behind these numbers? I don't think so.
You tell me. Who out there knows? We're all nerds here.
What is
Why
it?
did I pick this number?
Why did you pick it?
I'm asking the chat. Why did I pick it?
Chat, why did you pick it?
It's the answer to the question, Law Dog. Yeah.
There you go.
It's the answer to the question. The only question that matters. This is the answer.
It's 42.
It's 42.
Dang.
The ultimate question.
That's
See?
deep. That's deep.
See? Real nerds know.
Chuck, welcome in. Michael Paints Minis, welcome in.
Hello.
Welcome in, everybody. Paint Liquor Fuse was born in 3542 BC. Dang. Paint Liquor buried him.
Man, the ageism
Rough.
in this building today has been rough
The
for me.
ageism.
Call
Why
it
did somebody say?
congressperson.
Did somebody say Dietz?
Call my congressperson.
Oh my congressperson.
I told somebody I'm mad at them, and they said, "Oh, you'll forget."
Bakamaru, welcome in.
Oh, you'll forget. Like, I'm not gonna let you get away with that. Oh yeah, you'll forget.
Thank you for that sub, Baku. 19 months.
Thank you, Bach. So a stenciled 4 and 2.
Nice.
And then do we have anything else that we can put, like, because I like this flat area of the leg to maybe put some numerics there. Is there something we could put there that would be fun?
Numerics.
I don't know. Or like a unit designation or something.
How about 3542?
It's not a thing.
It might be now.
That's not a thing. It could be an emblem. We could come up with an emblem.
Yeah.
That we could paint on there.
Okay.
I just like the flat. For some reason, when I look at it, I'm like, the flat part of the leg here could be something cool.
What about like my first?
There could be something that goes, on one of these panels too, but I don't.
My first idea was a sun. I don't know why. Like a sun, just like a, not. I don't know why. It just came to my mind.
Okay.
A sun.
Okay. Just like a stylized sun.
Yeah, just kind of like a decaled sun that you'd find on like a banner or something.
Put your area code.
I'll put the last 4 of my social.
Yeah. Here's the last 4 of my social. Nobody will ever understand what that is.
Maybe, I don't know. Does it need it?
Do me a Google reference.
Okay.
Do US tank markings, and let's see what we come up with. There'll be some sort of shapes, like diamonds. Somebody's saying it's diamonds.
Oh yeah.
There's like regimental emblems and stuff.
Something
you can get rid of the lettering stuff. Yeah, see, like that upside down triangle with a star in it is kind of cool. The triangles.
What about an American flag, like a little American flag or something?
No, I don't want it to be national.
What's I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's the old U.S. star.
Here's something kind of like what you were.
Yeah, that one's doing the star. That's a Stuart light tank. So there's a lot of them that have the star and the stripe like that. That's why I'm using the yellow, because the original, the OG U.S. emblems were in yellow and white. So that one has like numbers.
This one has like a heart.
Oh, the heart is
actually
the heart's kind of fun, actually.
I actually really like that.
The heart's kind of fun.
It's like
the
a
heart
diamond,
inside of a diamond. What is that for? It says it's a Renault FT Light Tank Corps National Museum, United States Army, Fort Belvoir, the 5 of Hearts. Oh, so that was like the tank's individual logo, right?
Interesting.
So I'm thinking more in terms of like unit or detachment markings and stuff. Like, what is the big? That one has a number. There's names. I'm not going to write a name on it. What do we got? Sorry, guys. We're looking at the interwebs. You can't see, but
that one's kind of funky monkey.
That patent is world renowned for having the. I think that's from the Korean War.
Yep,
has a big cat painted on it.
A lot of the stars, a lot of that.
Ooh, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Personally, like I just saw something. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. The black like card spade on it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. The heart's kind of cool.
The heart's kind of cool, like the heart inside of a diamond.
That could be cool. That would just look.
It would look cool on here. So let's do that.
Good.
Let's do that.
Now, would they typically be universal? Like if I was on one side, would they put it on the other? Not always.
Well, I could do it as a yellow diamond with a red heart inside of it.
Ooh.
On this side of the tank.
Yeah.
Right? That way this side of the thing and this one has 42 on it.
Yeah.
We could do that. That way this side livens up a bit and then we just don't do anything on the legs. Or we, do, I don't know, we can do something else on the leg, but.
Catching up here. Snail bomb, ace, spade, pinup, eagle, I'm just reading out all the chat. Chat, we got Swiss flag, a fork, and a paintbrush.
Oh my God, that's great.
A fork and a paintbrush. Could go on the bottom leg or something, but I think we're going with a yellow diamond with a heart in it. We just saw that on something.
Again, I'll just block out the shape real quick with lines.
Mm-hmm.
If my angles aren't right, I can thicken or, shrink the lines in any given direction. Right? We got the basic shape laid out pretty quick. The top is taller than the bottom in this case. So the bottom lines needed to have been longer. So I can see that. So what I will do is come down here. By doing so, it changes the angle. So if my point starts here instead on that bottom point, then the angle of that line changes. I'll do that instead. And then the same thing over here. See how we like that. And that got us there. That's pretty good. Then we just fill it in.
Baby J in a diaper. Oh my gosh.
We made a logo for him where he was his face on a bus, like Thomas the Train Engine.
Oh, right.
He didn't like it. He got offended when we were doing the first, like, Baby J will throw you under the bus thing. He took it a little personal, so we didn't do that. I thought it was an amazing graphic, by the way. I thought it did a great job. But I don't want to do anything that makes anybody feel uncomfortable, so.
Oh yeah, this is gonna look great. That's a good call.
You're tooting your own horn now, Chris.
No, I just I swear I'm not.
When doing freehand shapes, it seems odd, but one of the things you have to worry about is not letting your border get too thick with paint. You'll see how I made the outside with lines first. If you go over it too many times, you'll build up a lot of paint on the line, the outside edge. And then when you go to fill it in, that paint you're spreading that paint out a lot further. And so what it will be able to see that it's thicker paint along the border at the end of the day. So you got to do the edges and then put paint in the middle. Then if you go back and do the edge again, you got to put more paint in the middle. You always have to be balancing out. Even if the middle already looked good, if you do another line and another load of paint around the border, paint more paint in the middle because you want the density of paint to be the same so you don't create a texture. It's easy to do when you're doing fine work to wind up with a texture built out. And it can be a little odd sometimes.
Mini Pie TV, hi, long time no see. Welcome in.
Whoa.
Michael Paints Minis 10 streak. Nice.
And then I think down here, just because I'm crazy.
You gotta do something else?
Well, I really wanted something on this leg.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
What is that?
It's a line. Jeez.
I've never seen a line in my life. It's the first time I've seen a line.
We don't let Chris out very often.
No.
He can't be trusted.
Oh, it's a little mountain. Got it.
Definitely a mountain, Christopher. Definitely a mountain.
Looks like a mountain to me. We must
This
climb
is a mountain that we will stake our claim, fight to our grave.
We will climb this
These
mountain.
are the ideals that we will die for.
We will fight as a nation together. We will climb this mountain. Chad, I said I'd never do that again. I lied to you.
He lied.
Sarcastic Grandpa, welcome in. If you're all just tuning in, we're doing some decals, some numbers, some shenanigans, little mountains, whatever you want.
These are not mountains. It's not what this is.
Yesterday we had Baby Jay on. We were painting up a witch workup. He's going to be back tomorrow with some OSL. Jason will be back on Friday. We got a big variety for you. Now, is it a chevron?
It is a chevron.
There it is. Ew, that's great.
We won't put one on this side. I don't know why, but we just won't.
Because typically it would be like that, right? It would not always be uniform.
No, yeah, sometimes you would just paint something on one side of the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just because the tankers are lazy, but, you know.
Yeah.
Didn't say both sides, sir.
Shadowcast, what size brush is that?
Number 4. A Pro Synthetic number 4. This is the old tester batch of Pro Synthetics before we released them out to the public. So that's why the blue on the handle is much different. But, yeah, it's just one of the old pre-labeled number 4s. When we were switching our blue color, we tried a bunch of different lacquers. And this is one of the colors we did not like. Not that I didn't like it, it just didn't work. It wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be.
Saz and Baby J doesn't enjoy the diaper jokes. No, he's a Dolce Gabbana now. He's an adult J. It's adult J, everybody.
Did you say adult J Gabbana?
I did.
That's amazing.
He's adult J Gabbana.
He's adult J Gabbana.
That's right.
That's the new name. I don't care what anybody says. That's his name now.
He's adult J
Gabbana.
because he grew up and he's making a name for himself and he's rebranding himself. So I called him adult J Gabbana.
Ooh, did he say he was rebranding himself?
No, I was being silly in my silly fashion.
Oh, I was like,
No.
This is amazing.
He's adult J Gabbana.
I wanted that to be his idea.
Now
I'm just bummed.
He's adult. He's growing up, so he's adult J. And then I just love using words to be silly and thought of Gabbana.
Well, it just rolls right off the tongue.
Dolce
Dolce Gabbana.
Dusty Hobbies. We need to get Jason to paint cool runnings on the side of the tank without getting you fired. Thoughts? Question mark.
Thoughts? Asking for a friend.
Oh my gosh.
I don't like many of you.
Chuck, I haven't painted in 2 weeks. How does this stuff work again? Oh, Chuck, that's a long time. Got to get back in the game.
You sit on your hand until you feel the tingling.
Chris being silly. Now I've seen everything.
Eric Moreno, what are Jason's go-to size brushes? 2, 4, and 6.
Yep.
I have a 2 that I haven't even used in a while.
Oh,
a 4
wow.
and a 6.
Oh.
It still has the cap on it. 2, 4, and 6. This is my go-to brush sizes that I use for 99.9% of what you see me paint, regardless. Unless we get to really, really big models, then obviously I'll bring in, like large flat brushes and whatever. I'll use whatever the right tool for the instance is. But if you said, hey, you're going to an island with nothing else, I need you to pack up the brushes you would use, I'd take a 2, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
I can do anything with a 2, 4, and 6. Doing big, like if you said paint this tank with those brushes, that would suck, you know. But painting any vehicle with anything less than like a size 30, you know, or DA 100 is going to suck. Doghouse Hobbies, what's going on? Stupid meetings. Boy, tell me about it. None of my meetings have been stupid. It's just stupid that you have to have meetings. Does that make sense? The meetings are not stupid. It's stupid that you have to have meetings. Like, why didn't everybody just get it done?
The idea.
246. Yeah, that's why you'll see in the Pro Synthetic set, which is what I use all of our Pro Synthetic brushes. We have got the X10 for super small detail work, 00, the 2, the 4, and the 6, right? Is there another brush that I'm missing in there? I don't believe so.
2, 4, and 6, nope.
Mamble Moose says, are there use cases? D-Fresh says, can the speed of the brushstroke contribute texture in the final finish in the paint? I tend to have a fast, sketchy brushstroke. It sure can. It all depends on the weight, what I call the weight of your brushstroke. How much pressure are you applying? A lightweight brushstroke won't leave much texture because it's giving such a little amount of paint. It's the heavy stroke that builds texture, because the heavier the brushstroke, let me see if I can find a way to make this visible when it's hard to see. A light brushstroke will, just make a line, right? And that line will be a consistent amount of paint all across the whole surface, even though it's a thin surface. Let's paint something thicker here, right? If I use a bunch of light brushstrokes to paint a line or an area, right? None of that area with these light brush strokes, and you say you make quick, fast, sketchy strokes. That's just what I'm doing here. But none of that area has more or less paint on it if I'm even in my brush strokes, right? So this won't have any texture. It can if I do it quick, right? And I do it very sketchy, then I can have texture, visual texture, but no physical texture, right? Like I can see individual paint lines there, which is visual, but not physical. If you have a heavier hand, what happens, and this is going to be where I'm going to have to paint this so you can see it. If you have a heavier hand, let's say this is your brush stroke, right? What's going to happen is that you're going to have more paint build up. This is a very large brush stroke, right? Consider this is one brush stroke. You're going to have a lot of paint around the edges of the brush stroke and much less in between. If you can get my drift, because as the brush comes down and hits here, you put a lot of paint, and then as you push, right, it pushes the paint away from the brushstroke and actually out towards the edges, right? So you probably have all seen this. The heavier you push down, it builds up a kind of like a trim around it, because you're pushing all that liquid out to the edge of your stroke because you're smashing down so hard in the middle. So a heavy-handed painter will find more physical texture in their painting because the paint is pushing out to the edge of the line. So you're actually getting 3 lines. You're getting 2 thicker ones and 1 thinner one in between when you press it. That's why I have such a light brush stroke, because it allows you to have more control and more consistent finish across your models.
Man, Bold Moose, is there a case scenario for synthetics versus sables, or does it even matter?
Yeah, in line of what I just said, a synthetic allows you to have more snap, right, is a term that you'll hear artists use, which is the ability for a brush to bounce back to its original shape quicker because it's a stiffer material. Now, these synthetics in our Pro Synthetic line are not very stiff feeling, but they are stiffer than a sable. So when I make a brush stroke, right, and the brush, how would I do this? The brush bends, right? The time it takes to then snap back to straight is much shorter, even though it's infinitesimally small for both, right? But a synthetic won't hold that bend. A sable, once it gets loaded with paint and you paint for it a while, a sable can actually hold the bend. A synthetic will always shoot back to straight as an arrow, right? And so I like that because I'm painting with a lot of fast brush strokes. And so I need by the time I end this brush stroke, lift and go back, I need that point to be exactly where I want it because I'm pulling across and creating a dynamic texture on my model. I don't want the brush to continue to be bent like this as I use it, which a sable might do, right? it means that my next return stroke starts further back on the model because the point is now further back in the bend of the brush. So now my lines don't line up. Right?
Right.
But a sable, if you have a heavier hand, if you paint with more pressure to your brush stroke, a sable will take more pressure before it splits the tip. Okay, so let's go back to the synthetic, and I'm gonna amplify, over dramatize this so you can see it better. But a synthetic, if I have a light touch, keeps a nice fine point. As soon as I start pressing, right, because it's a stiffer bristle, it'll start to spread that point out. See that? It starts to be spread out. Right? And then I rotate over and I have that chisel tip. I can paint very lightly with it and keep that chisel tip. As soon as I press hard, I lose the chisel tip, so my line becomes thicker. A sable, because it is less stiff, can bend further before the tip starts to splay and spread out. So people that have a heavier hand when painting tend to like the sable more because it feels like it gives them more control. If you back off on the pressure on your brush, then both of them do the same thing. And modern synthetics, like our pro synthetics, will hold and withdraw paint. They'll load and deliver paint the same way a sable will. I feel no difference at all with them.
What's the best way to clean the synthetic brush?
Same way you would a sable, just use brush soap. There's no difference.
Our brush goop is fantastic. If you haven't tried that, Shadowcast.
It might be out of stock.
Oh, it might be, yeah.
It might be out of stock. Our brush goop, we're waiting on new packaging. And so Jen is very flustered because she can't make soap. It's all made by hand here in our factory, and the gang is bummed out because I don't think we can make it until we get new tins to put the soap in, which sucks, but
we'll definitely keep you guys posted when that comes back. General question for both of you and for chat. What are your 3 favorite Pro Acrylic paints? Can be any transparent, wash, or satin. Ooh, wow. Jason?
I always respond that that's not a fair question.
If I had, yeah, it's that one's tough. I know one for sure.
I can't pick 3. If you tell me you're going to put me on an island, you get 3 brushes and 3 paints, I say shoot me now.
Yeah.
Because 3 paints, I mean, I would have to, in that case, if you said, okay, I'm going to put you on an island, here's 3 brushes, what 3 colors do you need? And you have to paint this painting, or we blow up you and everyone you love, then I would have to force myself to say I probably want yellow ochre, I probably want Payne's gray, and I probably want a
dark purple.
Boy, that's
man.
Really hard, right?
Because dark purple on everything.
No, because I got to think of how much I can mix and get other colors.
Well, no,
and
so
I want CMY, but I need to have something with a value that's dark like black, so the Payne's gray handles that. But yeah. I can't get magenta. I can't get the function of a magenta and get brightness of a white in the same color. I guess I could swap and not do yellow ochre. I could do something like pale yellow, right? And then like dark magenta, pale yellow, Payne's gray. But that's a functional thing. That's not my favorite colors. So the 3 color thing is hard for me because I come up with all of our colors and they're all great.
Fantastic.
So I have 120 plus of them.
In chat, we'll be able to start making more soap tomorrow, and it should be back in stock again early next week.
Awesome. Jen, straight from the mouth of the boss herself.
I don't know. So that's the thing. But see, Jason's answering that question like if you're on a deserted island, right?
Well, you said if I had to pick 3 colors. And the only reason I can think I would have to pick 3 colors is if you told me something stupid like James Bond style that I had to go to an island and paint a canvas, right? Because otherwise I'm like, screw you, I'm picking all of them. I have 175 colors I like, But,
right.
I don't have favorite colors. You can say there are colors that I use on everything because they're so practical for the use in model painting. Dark purple, Chris called me out on that. Dark purple or royal purple, one of those 2. You can pick either one. I don't have a preference, but a dark purplish color for shadows is a must-have for me.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of yellow ochre for its uses when painting anything brown, yellow, that kind of stuff, but I don't know that... Again, it becomes so hard because what am I painting?
It's so hard.
Right?
Definitely...
I don't have favorite colors. It's crazy. I just love painting.
I'm definitely an olive.
Well, it says I want to be on a desert island.
I like olive flesh.
Wolfer says, do entire sets count? Because yes, then I want the mega set.
Yeah. Olive flesh is
Q
up
Lanu
there.
says dark purple, Payne's gray, and yellow ochre. Yeah, good choices. And those would be 3 colors you can't live without. They're great.
Dark yellow green is one of my favorites.
Dark yellow green's so good.
Dark yellow green. I like faded green.
The jades are all great.
Yeah.
See, here we go.
Yeah. Dark.
It's easier to ask me what 3 colors can I live without, right?
Oh yeah, I see. Live without. Yeah. Okay.
Like, what could I live without? Like, if you told me, hey, I'm going to take these 3 colors away and you'll never have them again, that would probably be an easier question for me to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's
because I could mix them.
Too many good ones. I've been really liking bright yellow
Kazuma nice.
Bright yellow green with fluorescent green.
Well, you've been doing those ghostly,
very ghostly, a ghostly glow. I definitely like that. With a little bit of glaze and wash medium in the airbrush, and it comes out great.
Chris has been on a painting streak.
I am.
Gabe has been on a building streak.
Yeah. I just actually refinished building some of my gargants. I'm about to start.
Did you get new models?
I did a while ago. Yeah.
Awesome. I know you said you were going to do them real this time.
We'll have to talk about that one day off stream. I got to figure out a really cool stone workup because I still want to do them like stone giants, but I'm gonna.
Don't buy that one because you can have that one.
Oh, no, I didn't build that one.
Yeah.
Well, you could show me on that guy.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll pull a baby J.
There you go. All right, so we've done some yellow ochre on all of that. I now need to move towards, I think, I pulled warm yellow, but I don't think I want warm yellow. I think I want bismuth yellow on this because I think I want to move it eventually towards a faded yellow, and bismuth kind of gets me there out of the yellow ochre is a warmish color anyway. The bismuth yellow is going to give me more of a cool yellow at the end of the day. That's going to help me fade it out,
Fade out the yellow?
Yeah, it'll look better as kind of like a worn paint, So I am thinking, and even though I'm not weathering, I'm painting it as if it's new. I'm using colors that will help me get to a more faded version of it as we go. So the bismuth is the way to do that. I might mix in a little bit of the yellow ochre into it first. But it gives me that color. It's different enough. But it will not be, warm yellow will be a little bit too orange for this whole thing, I think.
Eric's got a question. Any chance we can have you guys make equivalents for historical paints?
So I
don't want to use competitors.
Well, number one, I appreciate that. Number two, it is one of the things on my list of developments that will start after this next release at Adepticon, is that I am going to start looking at what it takes to do National Color Code colors for us.
That would be so cool.
And we'll see. So I don't have a perfect answer for you yet, other than yes, it is on my list of to-dos to look at.
Helvalu or Panzer Gray.
Yeah, we would definitely do some German Panzer Gray, some Desert Yellow, some U.S. Army Drabs. Some Russian greens, stuff like that. I will probably only do,
how many are there official colors?
Well, more than you can imagine.
I was just about to say, I'm sure there's
more than you can imagine.
Oh man!
Every nation,
right?
Went through this crazy here's all of our color codes, and it's nobody needs that many color codes, because you have the difference between your Air Force grays and your Navy grays, and it's just silly. Each department of most armies has a designer, it seems. There's no need for it, but whatever. We won't be doing that. We won't be model color where you get every national color. I won't be doing Israeli, desert tan, because it's too close to British something or other. But I'll get a good color spectrum going to where I feel we won't be the rivet counter's dream, but we will definitely help military modelers find, and other modelers who are doing, even like 40K stuff, but just want a really good, British drab or Russian green that gives you a good military green, a better head start. We already have really good, like with our camo greens and stuff like that, we already have a really good green and brown spectrum that you can use, of course, yellow ochre, that you can build colors off of. But when they are not listed as their namesake, people in that realm have a little bit of a problem because they're used to going and buying Dunkelgelb.
Oh, it's not like the very specific color.
Yeah. And so we will make them to that and name them that way. That will probably be the first paints we release that will not be named based on actual paint colors. They'll be named on the national color chip colors.
Which is kind of like its own color in itself.
Yeah, they just get to make that stuff up. They just make up words. Because, their camo is all woodland camo and stuff like that.
Man, Bold Moose, is there a shelf life for the brush soap? And then Jen responded, it should last until you finish it. If you leave the lid off, it might harden, but it'll definitely still be usable. Yeah. Man, Bold Moose, it lasts for quite a bit. It's got a great shelf life. I've only been through one full tin. I just bought one not like several months ago, and I haven't gotten,
She always used to laugh because the one we had in the studio was years old.
Well,
and it's because we would only use it to show people how to clean your brush.
Oh,
and so we kept pulling it out, and it was like one of the old white labels. We've had black labels for God knows how long, but it had one of the old white labels.
It's great stuff.
I think even before that, we had one of the old 1-ounce 10s in the studio for a long time. And we haven't had 1-ounce bottles in forever.
Q, do you ever see a day when you stop getting the question, do you guys plan on making blank paint?
No, and it's a good question, right? We've said multiple times that we didn't plan to have as many paints as we do right now. So I never say no, but there's a point where we have to draw the line as a company. We don't want to forego quality for quantity. And that's at some point what you have to do, because you have to think in terms of the way we run our business is what would it take for us to go from, how long would it take for us to go from completely out of stock of every color to having every color back in stock, right? And that might sound silly to some of you, but that's our build case is like, okay, well, what would it take, right? And time-wise, we make sure that it would only take a maximum of 2 weeks. That's how we build the production in the company. So you have to think in terms of, okay, well, if you add 100 more colors, how do you keep it at 2 weeks? Well, you have to, add that much more production and personnel and all that, and we won't just willy-nilly do that. So a lot of times it's a business perspective, and a lot of times it's a painter's perspective, because as an artist, I'm like, why do you need that color? You don't need that color.
Never say no, plaid paint confirm, let's go. Nope.
I also didn't say that.
Little Billy, it's a terrible question. Please stop being inspired by fans. I can't keep buying new paint. My wallet will not allow it.
There is also that part. Right. There is also the part where it's like, at some point in time, you have enough paint. Our whole goal as a company and me as an artist making paint was that I wanted to inspire you to try new things with color mixing, to learn color mixing, feel more comfortable with feeling like no color was out of reach. Because when you start playing with paint in a way that allows you to experiment with mixing colors, as opposed to just reaching for Death Guard green and knowing that's the color that's on the box, so yeah, that's what I'm using. It makes it a lot easier if you know what kind of colors go into Death Guard green to make it what it is, so that if you need it to be, I like that, but what if it was a bit more yellow?
Yeah. Q, all I ask is if you add 100 more colors, I need a massive bag to hold all the paints. Yeah, it's going to be the Monument Evo Duffel. We're just going to get a duffel bag for you.
Does it come with a person to carry it for you? Because
every purchase.
It's like that Maybach or whatever it was that Mercedes sold, that if you bought it, you got a year's worth of a private driver when it first came out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's better get started on that 8,000. Oh, yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, Jason. Baby J was doing a lot of cool like color mixes on the palette just to show chat. And I'm like, what would it be if I took a stream day where I took every paint and mixed it with every paint, right? There's chat was saying it's 8,001 combinations.
It sounds like hell.
I think it'd be kind of fun.
My version of hell.
I think I if I was gonna do a 24-hour stream, that would be it.
That would be good content. It's like today is Bold Pyro Red.
I might just do it to be like, hey,
and we're gonna mix Bold Pyro Red with every color and show you what you get. Bold Pyro Red.
Here it is. Bold Titanium White.
We have some amazing things cooking in the background, by the way, that would be, while being digital, would be really good for that. So maybe I will surprise you here pretty soon with an answer to your question.
Oh. Yeah, Lil Billy saying it's 12 seconds a mix. If I wanted to do a 24-hour stream, I'd have to do a mix every 12 seconds. Okay, let's go.
That ain't happening.
Can you imagine the energy I'd have to have?
No, that ain't happening. We didn't say we do it all in one stream, did we?
I was like, 24-hour stream, how long is it going to take me? They're like, it's 12 seconds a mix. I'm like, I don't know about that one. Chris mixing color segment. Mixing corner segment. That's right. Just me mixing colors.
Mix sushi's mixes. Mix sushi. Chris mix sushi.
Oh my goodness. That's funny.
I'm just adding a little bit of highlight here on these things with the yellow, the pure bismuth on here now to get it a little bit brighter. We're going to paint a heart over this one, so the middle will be obscured, but I want to get a little bit of brightness going up towards the top factored in here.
You said you were adding some bismuth?
Well, this is bismuth yellow that I'm highlighting with. So I've highlighted the 4 and the 2 and the delta.
Nice.
Right. Now we paint the heart. 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 We'll start that with red oxide. Will we do burnt red? I think we'll do burnt red.
Love burnt red. Burnt red's another great color.
Yeah, burnt red. It's more
that's on my list.
Military
for sure.
Style deep red.
I love doing my cloaks with burnt red.
Chris McSushi is the equivalent to adult Jay Gabbana. Yes. That is the same thing.
Chris mix sushi.
It's mix sushi.
That's right. It would be a fun, or maybe just do like a voting system where it's like, all right, chat, what's next? What mix is next? What color am I thinking of?
Get Jordan to repaint the snake lady. No. With each scale a different color. Holy balls. You guys are losing your collective minds. Can you imagine how clown suit that would look?
Question. Do you guys have foam paint inserts for the Evo so I can change out a load?
Yes.
Yep.
They're on the site. Again, just kind of roughly getting the shape of a heart going. And it may not be even in there. It may not be, it's not symmetrical on the humps of the heart. That's fine. We'll build out. We can thicken things up. So always err towards making it a little bit smaller than you want it, because you'll have to add paint to get it where you want it. You can't erase. Jen will love this one. She loves hearts.
I think that was a good little choice. Looks good.
Tooting your horn again.
No, I'm not doing that intentionally. I just think that just the composition looks really good.
Chat. Tooting his horn. Tooting his own horn again.
What a great idea by this guy.
Glad you had it. Picking out that other side kind of evens it out a little bit.
Paint liquor. Can we get a kill tally on it?
Oh, we could, yeah.
Bunch of
some hash marks.
That are a bunch of little like stars or whatever. Don't they put like gold stars on it for kills or confirmed destroys or something like that?
I think so.
Or is it just like straight up tallies?
I like the tally mark idea. You know, you would always see it, like, I don't know if with tankers they were allowed to do their own thing, but like on the side of planes, they might have little swastikas with cross-outs on them.
Yeah. For
how many Germans they'd killed. And then if they had taken out Japanese, they had like the dot on there.
Interesting.
So a lot of them had different, you know, if they fought in multiple theaters of war. I like that. It's kind of stylized.
Serious.
Feels pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I like hash marks. Hash marks feel like the crew scrapped it on there.
Yep.
You know?
That's kind of cool.
We kind of already did the detailing on the barrel, though, so I would normally like to put it on the barrel. But there's no reason we couldn't put hash marks someplace else. Where would we put them?
What
Maybe
about
like on this front part here, on the turret nose.
Something small.
Do some small ones there.
What scale is this in?
You know, since it's not a real tank, it's tough to tell, but I would say it's 156th. 156th is the general scale of 28 to 30 millimeter.
Okay.
148th gets a little bit bigger. 135th scale is your standard scale models. They're too big for tabletop wargaming. They have a bulk to them. They're not too big. You can play tabletop wargaming in that scale. There's nobody makes the models for it. And then, because the models themselves, like figures, are probably 3.5 inches tall at 35th scale.
Yeah.
156th is generally the scale for what we talk about in wargaming. It's not perfect, but it's close. Yeah, German tanks had rings around the barrel.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It
Yep.
does.
Yep.
Look at that. That's what they're just talking about.
Yep. They look at that guy. That's like a
man.
martyr. Oh no, that's a Stug. That's a tank destroyer. Holy, he must be on the Eastern Front. That's a lot of T-34s dead by that guy. Holy crap. Chris has got a picture up here. That guy's got, if that's not close to 50,
that's a lot.
That's a lot of tanks dead. That guy's got rings all the way to the mantlet almost.
This was something you were mentioning too. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what that means with the stars and the dots and the dags.
And the triangles and stuff.
Because that's a Russian tank. They wouldn't have been killing Americans. So it may mean like what kind of unit they destroyed.
Yeah. Crazy. Cool
You've got a tub full of dust stuff you were trying to sell? CJ Play? Really? I love the tanks for other weird war stuff. We've painted up quite a few. I've got this Desert Rat themed Stuart with the autocannon and the submersible scoop for air intake for the motor. You know, so it's basically the same. No, I guess it's not really the same model, is it?
It's close. It looks close. I mean,
it is. It is kind of the same model. They've all got the same bits and pieces. This one just has a Sherman-ish
feels
turret
like
on it, but they have the same body.
Same world.
This one's bigger because it's like lurching forward, but they're the same tank, really. And then the big German one, which is crazy. We were using this one. We showed everybody how we built or how the method to do the tarp to create a stiff sculpted tarp for a tank out of cloth or tissue. So yeah, the big German, like two, I can't imagine. Like I think these are bigger than 88s, but the idea big. Is like 288 millimeter cannons on one vehicle would be a destructive force. Considering that the Pak 88 was like the bane of the Allies in World War II. hide that thing in the tree line and flat cannon everybody to death. And then when they decided to point it at tanks on the ground, it became worse. It was blowing bombers out of the sky, and then they decided to point it straight forward and fire it along the ground.
Dang.
You like that in some Star Wars stuff, they'll have little crossed out TIE fighters and stuff on X-Wings or helmets to show a kill. Yeah, exactly, right? Shouldn't you have to play a game with the tank and take out another tank to get a kill tally? Oh boy, you're pushing it now.
Play the game.
You're pushing it now, right? I don't know about all that nonsense. Kill tallies, believe it or not, I might do the kill tallies after the weathering.
Really?
Well, because kill tallies will be a live thing.
I guess that's true.
I speak about it in terms of what was on the tank when it came out of the factory and what happens in the field. Because what happens in the field is in tune with the weathering at the same time. So
100%.
You could have kill tallies where they actually have maybe scrubbed the weathering away from the spot where they put the kill tallies because they went to add more.
Yeah.
So that could be a fun effect.
Yep.
Where we actually have a spot that looks like it was wiped clean to put another tally on it.
That makes total sense.
All right,
the big one reminds me of the Overlord tank from CNC Generals.
This is an Overlord tank? Or the big thing?
The big one reminds.
Yeah, maybe.
Synthetic.
All right.
So what's next?
Weathering.
We're going to jump into weathering, huh?
Going to jump into weathering, yeah.
Nice. So with weathering, how do you approach this from a high level for tanks? Like what's your approach?
So the first thing I think about when determining how I'm going to weather a particular vehicle is the scenario I envision the vehicle being in. I have to create an environment or a story in my head. How battle hardened is this thing? What kind of battling is it doing? Obviously, we're talking about a fictitious tank with legs here. So, the world is our oyster. It's not, if I were doing 35th scale military modeling and I was going to try to enter it into like an IPMS competition or some sort of diorama competition, I would need to be going for more realistic because they don't really have a fantasy level in that. So they're going to want to have it be something like a three-dimensional photograph from the war. So you're going to want to make sure that if you're in that realm where you're doing that type of scale modeling, that you're really thinking more in terms of what it would truly be like in a theater of war. And you don't find vehicles with a tremendous amount of battle damage on them because in reality, a vehicle is taken out of action with just a small amount of battle damage, right? You're not going to have a bunch of shells bounce off a tank. I mean, maybe you could tell a story. There's probably photos out there of some miraculous tank that took 15 shots from underpowered cannon rounds that all deflected off the front of it. Maybe a King Tiger or something like that, right? Or a Tiger tank that got hit by, 75 millimeter shells and none of them pinned the front glacis or something like that, right? So you can have stories you can tell, right? But they can't be so outlandish if you're going for realistic, because putting a tremendous amount of chips on the tank and things like that, tanks if you really look at how the war was done, tanks either didn't last that long, or they would get standard weathering, or they'd go back in and they'd get repainted. Not fully repainted, but the crew would take care of them because that was like their life was that tank. So to find one that was ultra beat up is going to be more unrealistic than not. Now, move that thought process into something like 40K, where you can imagine that every battlefield is a tremendous amount of small arms beyond belief, right? It's not like, we think in World War II, it was a tremendously horrible war. Tons of people died. But the way that war was fought was still not like what we see in 40K, where we imagine Tyranids storming and millions of Imperial Guard dying by the billions, kind of a thing. The scale of war in fantasy can outpace. And so now you have the freedom to say, okay, I want bullet holes all over it. I want scratches and dents and dings. And, I want it to look like it was gone through a meat shredder. And you can do that. So it's all storytelling. If I see a diorama with a Tiger tank and all of it is, there's no laser cannons and there's no weird war stuff attached to it, and yet it looks like it's, been run through the shredder and it's still operable, then I don't believe it, right? So that's kind of where my brain starts, is thinking in terms of the theater of war that it's in, how far has it been, how embattled has it been, and then start to do it. And then start, if you're going for that realism, for me, even if I'm going for fantasy, I want to start from a place of realistic expectations of how metal or whatever material I'm looking at would weather, right? And all of these surfaces would weather along the edges first, okay? So people stepping across the tank, dragging things across the tank, it's always going to catch the paint at the edges and wear that off first. That, and like we talked about, because they paint a lot of the body parts as one big part, when you have hinges that move, paint breaks at the hinge because they painted it with the hinge closed or open, and then the hinge moved and broke the paint at the joint. So you'll have weathering at the joints where the bare metal was exposed once the paint was broken. They don't paint like the hatch and then put the painted hatch on the painted body. They put all the raw material together and you have a body with hatches, and then they spray the whole thing. Right? They may not do that anymore, but in World War II, that was kind of the way. You could always pull a war daddy and have your tank accidentally sunk in a pond. In 40K, you have to pray for the whole damage to get repaired. Well, I mean, you're talking about a world where they've forgotten how to repair anything, so they just pray to the gods of technology to hope that it doesn't die, right? They just slap a new coat of paint and oil and unguents all over it.
Okay, so that makes sense, though.
Yeah, Ghost Hunter says, before you do your weathering, paint it like it's new. To some extent. Now, with this tank, we have done our paint application with the airbrush to give it a weathered effect. We already have dark shadows and brighter highlights and some edge highlighting, but you want to get it to this kind of a level before you start doing all of your beat-up nonsense, right? Because the beat-up part happens to the tank after it's put in the field, and then when it was new, when it rolled out into that field, it was, the color it was supposed to be and all that. So weathering, in my opinion, is easier done when you paint it like it's new and then weather it and beat it down off of that, because now you have the control of how far you want to take it, how you want to oxidize your colors, what do you want to do for scratches, things like that. So that's what we'll be doing. Yeah, they hand-painted camo on tanks. Yep, in the field. Or at depot, right? But in the field. Yeah, I don't think there were many tanks, if any, that came off the line camoed.
So, what are your typical first steps when it comes to weathering?
Well, we're going to do it. We're going to get some black-brown paint, because I like black-brown paint for my weathering. Mm-hmm. You can use any color, really. Some people will use a straight black. I don't prefer black because it then has to be weathered. The black gives you the darkness of a scratch, but it doesn't take care of the color of the earthy tone of dirt or rust or whatever happens in that scratch. So I prefer black-brown. Black-brown gives us a really dark color that when it dries super matte feels like a black, but also has the tinge of an earthy tone to it, which follows with what we're doing for in-theater feel of dirt and mud on this tank, right? So we'll take some black-brown. I am not going to do the sponging initially on this tank. In the past, you've seen me do weathering on fantasy models. What was the last one that we did that way, Chris?
You did. What about your BattleTech thing?
Oh, that was it.
Yeah. That
right.
was the last recent weather thing.
Yeah. So on the Timberwolf, you want to pop in on that?
Yep.
The Timberwolf, what we did for the weathering is, again, I set the stage for my story is fantasy, sci-fi, far future battling, walking around in these basically walking laser tanks, right? And so what would it be like? And we painted it like it was new, did all the highlighting, and then came back and used the sponge method with black-brown and just tapped the sponge lightly all over it and gave it a tremendous amount of battle damage, because this at scale has a full-size human sitting in this cockpit up here. So this is a big mech. And I can imagine, again, in warfare in the far-flung future, I get to decide what reality is. And so I like beat up. I like it to look like, oh my God, it's weathered the storm, right? Punch in real far. Mm-hmm. So if we get into super zoom, you can see. So then I go in and I did the detailing with the brush, the sponge, and then the brush comes in and you just highlight with deets and doots, teeny weeny little dots of light and highlight lines to add dimension to that. So it feels like if you were to touch this, you'd feel where the dimension of the paint changed, where there was a nick in it. It would drop low. And so I highlight those nicks. And so now you've got that. And you've got some big ones, where I do like little scratches out, like big hard rounds hit, and other ones that are just a chip paint and whatever, right? And so this is one way of doing it. This is very, I say fast. This didn't go fast because we had to paint a million deets and doots on this guy in order to get this. But this is a lot quicker way to do it because the sponge application of the weathering gets it done super quick. But it's really good at a scale like this because it can do a lot of small things that become fairly large scratches when you think of the size of a human in this scale, right? So the scale works. You can do it on this tank that we're doing too if you wanted, but I feel like it gets to be too much, right? Again, it'd be too much scratches. If we're going for something that feels like it could be real, then I don't want to have that many scratches on a scale tank like this where a human is, probably 2 inches tall, right? Or probably not. I mean, at 28 millimeter scale, right? The human's going to be like 30, 35 millimeters tall. So under 2 inches, but, so a bunch of little scratches on here puts us in the junkyard, right? Because the crew's not going to let that happen and not take care of their tank. And the war didn't act like that. There weren't, 50 million small round fire being done at a tank because nobody's that dumb. Nobody's wasting ammo that's severely valuable at war on shooting your rifle at a tank, right? So you're not going to get a lot of small arms damage on tanks. There's not meteors falling from the sky and debris that's scratching your tank. It's people walking on it, equipment drug across the surface. That's what weathers a tank. Then there's a hole in it from where a shell hit it and took it out of action. So you see that weathering is not like our vision and our fantasy. But here I will put some scratches on it because I want to show you guys how to do this.
Sazin's asking about noosh.
Noosh? We'll use noosh after we do the scratches.
Cool.
So first things first, black brown. I swear I put it on here. Take the black brown, get my brush, and get it to where I can do fairly small amounts of paint. And then I'm just going to kind of go along my edges, if you want to super zoom in here for me. I'm going to pick some of my edges. This one seems nice to start with, and I'm just going to kind of, give myself some touch points along the edge. And notice how I'm just kind of brailing my way around. I'm SOSing, right? I'm dotting as I go.
Bud's asking, will the spare fuel tank get some weathering?
Yep. We'll paint it after the fact. I'm going to do the main body, and then we'll come back and do that kind of stuff.
K-Drops asking, did Glaze and Wash Medium have a blue cap recently? I purchased a new bottom from LGS and wanted to be sure it was the same current product.
Yes, we changed the color of the cap so that at retail you could know what you were buying because they're all clear, milkish white things. That happened with the addition of the gloss varnish. The Glaze Wash Medium was the first, I believe, and then the gloss varnish, the noosh, and now matte varnish will be hitting, and we didn't want you to not know what you were buying. Because if they all had black caps, we felt like that was tougher to figure out. So yeah, blue is Glaze Wash Medium. You got it. And it is the current product. Right? So again, you just see I'm basically just kind of pressing the brush along the edge and making various sizes of scratches. I don't want to pull it like a line. I want to push the brush into it. So again, if you can super zoom for me, right? I want to just kind of take the brush and I'll just kind of press it into that edge, right? So as I'm doing it, I'm just pressing doots, and then I'll tie them together or add another small one, elongate it a little bit, right? Give more natural feel to it, having torn paint off of there. It would not just be a straight line. So then I can come back over here, and once I have a nice feel for it, then I can say, okay, well, let's give that one a little more dimension, make it a little bit bigger, and drop down into the side surface a little bit more. And again, here now you can see that every time I do this, it gives a little bit more a weathered look to it, and you can go ham. You can take this too far. You can do it to your liking. But I generally start with less, just dots across the top, that the edge is broken up, and then I'll come back in and say, okay, well, what if I want to make this one, like on this thing on the front, actually have a really big chip out of it like that. Okay. And so I'm just going to go along all the edges and do this. And it's super simple. As you can see, you don't got to work really hard at it. You just got to try to define, again, which edges would have this. And my upper facing edges are going to be the ones that I think of first, because this is where people are going to climb up and stick their boots and all that kind of crap. So
Are dutes inversely proportional to deets? Yes.
No.
No. Yes, no. Dutes and deets.
Dutes
Very
and deets.
scientific here. Oh, I can already start seeing the effect. Especially when you hit that white stripe.
Oh, yeah. Right. And you can like leave big spaces that don't have any. And that kind of tells its own story, that that's an area that doesn't get a lot of attention. You don't have to feel like you got to do everything. You know, places where there's corners where multiple edges come together might be more issues. I can drop that chip down a little bit. And I've got this one that's sizing up pretty big right on that white stripe.
And it's where they're climbing in.
Yeah, you know, you can imagine climbing up that edge there. And the reason I'm not using a sponge for this, a sponge could do it, but a sponge would take you outside the edge as well. It's hard to do the sponge and just get the edge because you have to press hard enough to leave paint. And when you press, the sponge wraps around the edge and has a chance to put paint further. So the sponge is good for big chip details, but for small stuff like this, I like doing it with the paintbrush when I'm trying to keep the detailing more realistic. Yeah, this is just black-brown. Really simple. Get my brush into a point and get some little narrower scratches going too. You want to just vary the shape of them if you can. You know, I can imagine like this one right here, just kind of having a little point that comes down like that. Now I'm getting all Bob Ross on you.
Yep.
Imagine a little bird right here and a little branch that comes off. We want to give the bird a place to sit, so I just want a little branch that comes down there, right? But you can see now you can kind of go crazy. You can create shapes and visuals that really stand out. Doing that one on that white line, it causes so much contrast that now you really bring that scratch. It doesn't have to be big to really have a pretty big impact on the visual of the tank.
What if this gets its own video? It should be called the Dutes and Don'ts of Weathering.
The deets and don'ts. The dutes and don'ts of weathering. I like it. Happy little ricochet.
Just a happy little ricochet.
Just a happy little ricochet.
That's funny.
Again, wherever I have like these corners that come together, I like to really knock a bunch of weathering on there because I can imagine, you know, that would be a spot that would run into stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely starting to see it for sure.
That whole corner chipped.
Definitely seen some action.
And I'm not worried about the interior of the panels. We'll figure that after, you know, as we go along. We can come back and put scratches, because we probably will want a couple of scratches on the interior of the panels too. There's no reason not to. There could be little spots where paint gets chipped. You know, if I come back in and I find that, you know, like right here feels like a good place. Why? I don't know. We'll do a little weird kidney shape in there. Right. And then maybe there's a deet and a doot satellite around that at various distances. And so now you've got a little...
Oh, it's like a little frowny face. Oh.
I mean, that's a stretch, but yes. But you can see how too much of that gets out of control, and all of a sudden you lose the story, and it becomes kind of crazy.
You don't want to go too crazy with it. To deet or not to deet? That is the question. That is right, Zazen.
It's always your choice. Don't let me dissuade you from beating the crap out of your model. You can imagine if this was a Death Guard tank in your mind, that you could go nuts with it. But even with Death Guard, too much weathering blows the story up and doesn't let you focus enough on the work you've done for the general painting and such. So I'm always hesitant to tell people to go wild.
I can see orc vehicles being beat up a bunch because it's all just garbage they throw together.
Yeah, which is one of the funnest parts, right,
of
about
orcs,
painting orcs, is that they do get to just be weathered to
It's
crap.
all because it's just a bunch of garbage sometimes.
Yeah, it feels awesome,
panels.
right? Because you can use tons of different colors together.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see why I did the highlight first, too, because now I don't have to... Imagine all the highlighting I would have to do in between these scratches.
Yeah,
to keep all those edges done. If you do the highlight first, now you put the scratches on top and your highlight's perfect. Right? It makes that part so much easier. All right, so here we have some curved areas. So notice how this, like the top of the turret up here, has no hard edge, right? It's soft. We talked about how we got the highlight on there when we were doing that with the dry brush. Same thing down here. We did the same thing with the dry brush. We kind of pulled that line softly to give that edge on the radius. So for here, we're going to have to I've got my paintbrush in a chisel shape, right? It's flat in one direction, knife's edge in the other. I want to take the flat side of it and start with my weathering along this, because you can imagine like maybe there'd be a little bit towards the back. So I'd put a couple little deets and doots and just kind of stipple along that edge where I have my highlight as I move up towards the front. And then I probably get more and more as I get up here and maybe this corner. You can imagine like your sides of your shoes get worn. Maybe I've got a bigger amount of scratching going on up here towards this corner, and then that tapers off as it goes to the inside because it'd be kicking things out of the way. Mm-hmm. So there I've got a nice weathered patch on the top of the foot, and we can, again, have a couple of deets and doots that feather out as we go. You just kind of want to rotate the brush along as you do this so that not all of your scratches look uniform. And you can see how setting it inside that highlight already also highlights the scratch for you too. So it makes our work a little less. But having a different dimension, having it be more damage towards the part that would hit things first. When you're walking, the front of your shoe hits stuff before the heel does. So there'd be less damage towards the back. There wouldn't be anything hitting back here. So it's fine to not have any battle damage on that, right? Like might scrape up against something as you bang into a tree and it scrapes past, right? But it won't have as much touch point on the back. And same thing on this. I don't. This one's a little weird because it has a hard edge along the top of the foot, and then also the curve on the top that I could see having a little damage on it. So we probably same thing. Not a lot of damage in the back. We probably just want to put some little chips as we move up towards the front, and then I can see like this part right here just being like no paint at all.
Yeah, right? Because this is what definitely is being like kicking things through the mud or the dirt.
Yeah, you can imagine like this whole thing, like even up on this inside edge has probably got some paint that's come off of it right from that leading edge, just banging into whatever else. If this thing goes charging through walls, the feet go first, right? Mm-hmm. That would probably go all the way down. But I still want to focus on like this area here. Right, so now it gives the motion of travel to the vehicle because I have all of my scratches loaded up front on the top of the foot and then on this ankle part, right? And then they taper as they go back. So that has its own, see how that storytelling works? You can tell where the brunt of stuff hits this model. It hits at the front because both of these match. And now same thing for the toe. So think about this. It's just like highlighting. There's a story to be told on the direction and the use of a thing, right? So again, I probably have way more chipping down here along the ground level, right? Along the entire perimeter of this toe. I'll just kind of randomly throw stuff on here. That paint has been chunked away on the toe. And then, kind of taper that, do some deets and doots where the paint would chip upwards, and then take that along this edge too.
Very nice.
Now this, because it comes in contact with the ground, might have some chipping towards the back, right? These areas might have chipping all along. They don't taper off because this is where it's standing on rocks. And
like going through a patchy rock field or something.
Yeah, you might have rocks that come up underneath. The same thing that scraped the bottom edge of this would be banging paint off of this. Right? So you just take the paint off the entire bottom edge of this because it's always in contact with the ground and surfaces that would be causing problems.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
And then we probably want to do a little bit more along this leading edge here too. So hopefully you're getting a feel of the cool factor of weathering and how it tells a story, right? It puts your model into whatever reality you've decided it lives in, right? Which is why I always say careful of too much, because too much weathering stops telling a story and just makes it garbage. Which is its own story, but that needs to be a very specific thing you're trying to say and to point out. Do a big chunk of paint off of the top of the toe here around this little windowed piece. And then just some speckles of paint lost around. That's starting to look pretty good. Just play with it. Again, I say a lot of times less is more as a starting point, and that's no different here. Put a little on, see how you like it. If you feel like it needs more, add more.
You're all just tuning in. Welcome. We're getting towards the end of the stream, but started with some decals today. Now we're into some weathering. Jason will be gone tomorrow. We will have Baby J back doing some OSL on his project. And then Jason will be back Friday. But thank you for tuning in. Doing some doots and deets of weathering today.
Lots of doots and deets of weathering today.
You
can see how this, again, is like we talk about all the time. This is the part that takes the longest, right? And weathering, when you're doing it, whether you're doing realistic weathering, over-the-top weathering, whatever you decide, is still going to take you a long time because we have to come back and highlight all this, right, in order to give it some depth and dimension on the model. So you got to be ready for the task ahead, for sure. These, I'm only going to really focus on the front edge of these little fins.
Sarcastic Grandpa, will you do any highlighting on the chipping as well? Yes.
He was just saying like that. I just said, it'll be something that we have to spend time doing highlighting on the bigger chunks to give it some depth. So I will highlight the green with the faded green up along this bottom edge, and on the side of some of these bigger chunks. Some of them won't, right? Because most of this weathering is coming from the bottom. Our light's coming from the top, so you can see that a bunch of these edges won't highlight. The down-facing edges, like along this edge, won't have as much highlighting to it, right? But you can see how some of these chips that come up and around and hook over like that, there'll be a little doot of highlight on some of this to give it dimension.
Super Duper John, how you doing? Oh, Super Duper John, shout out. Super Duper John, I believe, bought a mega set.
Awesome.
That we're going to do a giveaway on stream for.
Oh, rad.
He
Jen talked to me about that. Yeah.
I saw that. Super duper. Thank you so much. We're gonna plan that out for when we do our next giveaway.
That is absolutely
Shout out
awesome.
to you though. We definitely appreciate that, and it's fun for the community.
We love it. Hopefully get somebody who's been jonesing for some paint.
Mm-hmm.
I always love it when somebody who's new to the hobby wins. Doesn't mean it has to be that, but I always love it when somebody's like, "Oh my God, I was thinking about switching your paints, or I just got into mini painting." It's just so great.
Yep. I just punched out for you guys to kind of give you the big picture of this weathering and how it's looking now. You definitely can tell.
Yeah, you can see the weathered edges, but it's not over the top, right? It feels like, oh God, this tank is probably still seeing use, right? This is not its end of days. It just has the normal wear and tear of being in theater. And while that theater is been in there long enough to wear some paint away, it hasn't taken huge amounts of, battle damage. This back shin, I don't know what we'd call this. I don't think it would have as much damage, but I'm going to do some.
Well, maybe if it was like kicking up rocks, though.
Yeah, I'm going to do some just for artistic purposes because I don't like this green slab not having any interruption to it, right? I want to make something feel like there's stuff going on up here, but it may not actually have, a lot of problem areas there, which is fine. You're allowed to have artistic license from time to time and just make it what you want. But you can see that that's protected by all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like this piston.
Something would have had to catch or fling up if the
I can see like the edge being beat, but probably not that flat surface as much.
What would you highlight that color with? Just like would it be more of like a reflective thing, or
how do you mean? What color?
The doots and the deets, the weathering.
I will highlight them with the faded green of the paint, because the only thing that will catch a highlight necessarily is the edge of the paint that was cracked. Because you can imagine as it cracks, it peels away from the surface and catches light.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
So
we might go in with a little bit of like rusty, like orange oxide or something on some of the bigger chips to give them a feel of having some weathering to them. Because a chip is a thing, right? The chip of paint that's left is a spot that's like now got just primer showing through. So what we're seeing here is that this tank was primered black-brown. And if it were primered black-brown, what would that do if the primer was also rubbed away in the formation of the scratch? It would mean that at the deepest part of the scratch, we might have a little rust. Right, so I'll do like a little bit of orange oxide. And do that. We're about done, right? So let me do some of that right now. I'll show you just before we move on, because I won't be back until Friday. So I'll leave you with a little bit of extra on today, even though we're not done with all the weathering. I'll show you where it's going. So again, we'll grab some orange oxide. And in the same vein, we're just going to treat this with little deets and doots, but these are even smaller, and not every scratch would get these. You have to tell yourself that the reality is what we're talking about now is those deepest scratches that would have reached bare metal. Okay? So your bigger scratches and the middle or leading edge of a big scratch is where it would be the deepest in most cases. Right? So you can imagine where the hard round or rock or whatever hit would be its biggest place of impact. And so we've had this, maybe the top of this foot area has hit stuff so many times in the same place because of how this thing walks that it's rubbed us away to like bare metal, but only right here at the very front corner, right? Because that's the impact point for like everything. Right. And so you can do something like that just gives it the feel that, okay, that was the deepest spot. I wouldn't necessarily bring that back much further. You might do a little doot leading away from it. Tap it with your finger. But I wouldn't do this whole edge that way because none of the rest of this would have gone down to bare metal. Right. So same thing, like up at the front of this foot where it looks like, we've got it hitting into stuff all the time. Same thing. Just go ahead and you can pick some areas and do some deets and doots inside of your black brown. You don't want to lose your black brown. Right? You don't want to cover it all up. You kind of want to just set this right in the middle.
Oh, that's great.
Like so.
Super Daddy's asking a question. I need some help. I've never traveled with the hobby. I'm going to Adepticon and I don't necessarily know how to pack and what to pack. I'm going to be taking Jason's class and a couple others as well.
Awesome.
That's cool. That's a loaded question, I would say.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what all you're doing, right? When I travel to shows, if I think I'm going to paint, I like taking my go bag, of course. And whether or not I take a Neo or an Evo is based on what I want to take to paint or what I'm going to be doing there. So if I'm painting, if I have a bust I want to work on while I'm at the booth or something like that, then I might take, the Neo that just has the paints I know I'm working on that particular project with. If I'm just going to be showing off the paint and talking to people, then I might want to take the Evo with all my paints in it. Is that coming across? You guys following what I'm doing here with the orange oxide?
You can definitely start seeing like, okay, those are the bits that are the ones that take the heat.
Yeah.
Like those are the ones that are hitting the rocks and all of that. Orky fish meat. I ordered my first tank to paint yesterday. These got me motivated. That's awesome.
Aren't they great? Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Now, one thing to realize is that an edge that is constantly hitting stuff while we're doing this orange oxide on them, a lot of times that edge would be raw steel, because if it's an active tank, this area that has rust, I will go back in and I will highlight the inside of that rust area so that it is raw metal again, right? If you wanted to, you could use metallic paints for that. We won't do metallic paints on this guy, but a lot of times in the world of scale modeling, I would weather all of this, put a little bit of rust along an edge, and then go back with a number 2 pencil and take that graphite lead and rub it across the edge, because the graphite will put back a metal sheen to it.
Yeah.
Right? So a number two lead pencil like you used in school. You take the lead and you just do the edge highlighting with the lead. Gives it a little bit of shine but it's also dark, right? So it fills in the scratches and gives you that little bit, so you can hit your scratches with that number 2 pencil, and it gives it that sheen to it, right? So that's a neat trick to do when you're doing tonks.
Artist Outlaw, what color work up for these? This is black, brown, and orange oxide.
For the scratches?
For the deets and the doots of the scratches, yeah. The dings and dents.
And I'm just showing you how you can use like the larger parts and do a little bit of orange oxide. This tank is still active, so it wouldn't have this much rust on it, but that's a storytelling thing we can do. Who cares?
Maybe it definitely hit some heavy rain. Like heavy
rain. You think about flash rust, it could be that he's been sitting out in the morning dew in a field, and believe it or not, rust happens absolutely quickly when there's small metal particles that have been rubbed off, like small scratch spots that have metal dust and things. It's the stuff that's on the surface of the metal that rusts first, which is usually like if you're working with metal and grinding, you get those dust particles of metal, and those flash rust like in 15-20 minutes. I've had rust set in, depending on how humid it is.
Colonel bought the same tank off eBay, get to try out the technique. That's dope.
Oh, nice. Awesome, Colonel.
Maybe it's in the jungle.
What'd you pay for it? Do you mind telling us?
Yeah.
Are they pretty cheap? Because these are fun tanks. I would suggest to everybody to get yourself something like this, because it's just a fun, fantastical vehicle that you can paint.
It is a cool thing to practice on, I would say, too, just because it's so unique with... like it's fantasy, it's historical, it's got a lot going on.
It's got a lot of soft edges and a lot of hard edges, so it has a lot of material stuff that helps you figure out painting. Like the turret is that
OSL
old
possibilities,
cast, edge steel turret, and then the feet have got the rounded bits on them, and then the rest of it's all hard square edges and stuff. So it's got a lot of really neat ability to paint on it. And Super Duper John, when flying, I tend to take all of my paints in the foam trays that our go bags come with. You can buy them separately too if you just don't want the go bag, but you want to be able to travel. They hold 48 paints in a tray, a soft foam tray, and I stick those inside of Jen's Target shopping bag. She gets these, the plastic bags that they give you at the grocery store and stuff. I get a bunch of those, and I put it in one, and then I put another one on it, and I stick those in my checked luggage. I put all my paint in my checked luggage, and then I put all my carry-on in my travel bag, my go bag. And then when I get, to where I'm going, I then take the paint out and swap it all off. So,
Jason, it's 4:00.
Spatsnat says you saying that made all the eBay people raise their prices. Damn it! Now there's a run on freaking dust models. Somebody in chat's like, ooh, I can speculate on dust tanks. All right, gang. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It is quitting time. Hopefully, if you can pop back in one more time. Hopefully, you get some time to join us back on Friday. I'll continue on doing the rest of this side, right? And then, because we still have all the turret and the rest of the joints and edges along. But you see, I'm really focusing just the top edges. The bottom edge wouldn't get a lot of chipping, right? What does the bottom edge of stuff hit when it's that high off the ground? Not much, right? And then we'll do the turret where the guys might walk on it to get in, and then we'll do the other side, and then we'll start looking at how to use noosh to do the streaking and the oxidation, right? Because we'll be using noosh with like a white or a bright neutral gray to be able to do some oxidation of the paint where the sun has baked it. And you've probably seen old cars in the junkyard or in photos that the paint was red and then it goes to pink and then it goes to kind of a chalky white. That's that oxidation eating through the clear coat and eating through the paint and turning it into basically a bleached form of itself that's all dried out and would actually, if you put your hand on it, wipe on it, your hand pulls away and has white dust on it. That oxidized paint will do that. And so we'll do some of that on here to where I have a little bit of oxidation, not junkyard style, but a little bit of faded paint style, and should have a lot of fun with it. So stick around for the rest of this series. Jordan will be with you tomorrow. Baby J himself will be continuing on with the OSL on his amazing Crone that he was started yesterday. So if you started in with that, you'll find part 2 happening tomorrow. Then I'll be back on Friday and then into next week. Ta-da! Freehand a camel on the toe. That would have been very funny.
Oh no.
That would have been very funny and is still possible because I have not weathered the other foot.
He's gonna do it. Oh man.
If somebody reminds me on Friday, I might make that happen because that's hilarious.
You could do like a little silhouette or something.
Yeah, just a silhouette.
Yeah.
It would just be a little like two-hump animal with 4 legs. It'd be like a stick figure camel on the toe, and that would be hilarious.
Like somebody just did it as a goof.
Oh yeah,
out in the field.
Oh yeah, just out in the field, like hand done. That's hilarious, by the way. Can we please remember that, chat?
I will. I'll remind you.
Somebody write it down. I might do it off stream just so we show up with it, but I probably won't have time. But yeah, we'll do it. That's Zazin. That's amazing, by the way. I love it. Dusty says, can't wait for Friday stream. Absolutely loving this series. Great stuff, right? Because hopefully you can see how you can use every technique I'm showing you on these tanks. A lot of times we get so laser focused that we think, well, I'm not doing a tank. This isn't maybe worth it for me. Everything I've shown you here is good for Space Marines, anything armored that you want to do, bikes. You know, if you're doing 40K, there's lots of vehicles and big giant dudes in armor that all of these same techniques apply to. Mm-hmm. Everything I'm showing here is just as good on a human in an armored suit as it is on a vehicle. The way that we've shown you do the airbrush is just as good on a Space Marine as it is on a vehicle. All of the things you've seen me do would apply across everything that you would do. It might be fun at some point to do this same kind of airbrush application on a Space Marine and show you how to do the panel highlighting on a creature or dude. Gundam, yeah, Gundam's huge, and any of that is, I do all my Gundam exactly like what you've seen here, because it gives it that uncanny valley of realism that I think Gundam lacks a lot of times, that it's all big, bright, shiny, white robots, and then you weather the crap out of them and put them in theater, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, that's rad. And there's a lot of painters out there that do that, so yeah, you can have all sorts of fun with anything with these methods, so awesome.
Cool.
It took out, it put the camel, then cross it out. So it's part of the hash marks. We should put the hash marks on the feet. So it has like one batch of 5 and then 1 and then a camel.
I like that. That's a great idea.
All right, gang. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you're new around here, please hit that follow button or the subscribe button or both. Go over to YouTube and or Twitch, wherever you're watching us from. We love having you. Thank you so much for joining in. Chris put all the links up in chat. You can check out monumenthobbies.com for all the wonderful products that we sell to get your hobby all cranked up. Make sure to join our Discord where we have over 5,400 amazing artists just like you guys that are there for inspiration, hanging out, making friends, talking. 5,354. It's not quite the 5,400. That aren't putting too much pressure on the paints in order to stay out of rough situations. So make sure you join the Discord, hang out with us there. Check out the YouTube if you're watching on Twitch. All of these shows go direct to the live tab once they're done, so you can catch up on anything you missed or go back and catch previous shows. If you see the model at a stage that you wish you would have seen prior, all the painting you see me do has been done on another show. So you can catch up with where we are on this particular tonk by going back and watching the last 2 shows where I've been painting it. So thanks so much for hanging out. Stick around. Chris is going to find us somebody to raid, so show some love in the channel we wind up in. Click the follow button over there, and we'll catch you back here with Baby J tomorrow.